Welcome back to another installment of Fallen from Grace. Those albums that were created by very respectable and very respected bands that just make you think,
what the hell was that?
I mean, nobody is perfect, and even the greats can mess up slightly. And this time, we're going all the way back to 1983 with one of my favorite bands of Yes.
And here's the wackiest practical joke of all, and it's from those zany funsters in the group Yes.
Yes, 90125. So no album from Yes has really gotten so much flack than 90125, and to truly explain why, we need to put this album into a little bit of context. The 80s were not a good time for progressive rock, especially those bands who had made such a big impact in the 70s. As most of us know, Yes was a really prominent member of the prog community back in the early and late 70s. They were creating masterpieces such as Close to the Edge, Tales of a Topographic Ocean, Relayered, and Going for the One, and so they were really experimenting and really pushing the boundaries of what music can be. But somewhere in all of this, there was a shift that took place, and rather abruptly, especially with their band Tornado. This album looks like after the band released it, they kind of held it out and the audience did one of these. And whatever stuck was left on the album. Luckily, the band followed this up with The Drama, which was a much better received album. So it was definitely with a big backlash that the band, after Drama, released 90125. Because it hunkered back to what Tornadoes was doing with the shorter pieces of songs and much more of a poppy approach to music. And this is also when we saw the departure of two very staple band members for Yes. The first being Rick Wakeman, but he was kind of in a revolving door anyway. He was doing a lot of solo work, and it was a very busy guy. So it wasn't really that much of a surprise that he wasn't featured on this. The big surprise, though, was that Steve Howe left, the lead guitarist of the band. He'd been with the band for over a decade at this point. He kind of had one of that staple Yes sounds. And filling up the rest of the band, we did have the staple performers of Chris Squire on bass and harmonizing vocals as well as backup vocals. Alan Wright, who was the main drummer for the band pretty much since Topographic Oceans from 1973. And finally, coming back to the band after his hiatus from Drama, we have John Anderson coming back to the main stage for his lead vocals. So with the new lineup, and a shift in musical style and musical presentation, and with a new producer of Trevor Horn, who a lot of people do blame for that shift in sound, the band created 90125. So with all of this taken care of, and this put it more into context of where the band was at this time, let's dive in and find out track by track where the band didn't quite hit their mark. Track 1, Owner of a Lonely Heart. Yep, we're starting off with the big guns in this one. Probably the most popular song that the band has ever written. Upon release, it did reach number 1 on the Billboard Hot 100. So right off the bat, a lot of Yes fans could tell that something wasn't quite right with this new approach. The song starts off well enough with an interesting artificial sound mix going on, and this was kind of ushered in with that 80s craze that was going on with like the new wave, new sounds being produced with synthesizers and all that. So the band kind of included that in this album here, and it wasn't that bad. It mirrors really well the cover of the album, where it's a little bit abrasive, it's a little bit minimalistic. I don't know, it really represented very well that sleeve that we got with the album. And the opening guitar riff isn't overly that bad either. It's very abrasive, very in your face, again, much like the cover of the album. But once the intro is done, and that guitar riff is kind of over, and the guitar is in the background, and it's Chris Squire with the bass that's leading the song with that exact same riff, we realize that's the entire song.
Move yourself. You always live your life, never thinking of the future.
The song is very repetitive and very repetitious. It doesn't move at all. It's the classic pop song that must have that catchy tune, and they just repeat it over and over and over again. I mean, it's almost as though they might as well be playing
We need to know the words after just one listen, so repeat stuff, repeat stuff, repeat stuff.
And really, that's how you create a very catchy and pop song. You have a catchy hook, you have a very repetitive chorus, and you just keep going over and over and over again with those main points. Really, that's the entire song, and yeah, I'm just going to skip it. Let's go on to the song number 2. Alright, so this song isn't overly that bad. I do like the minor parts of the song that shifts into that main chorus. It adds a nice little dynamic to the song that we didn't see in Owner of a Lonely Heart. I also love the harmonizations on the chorus, and that is one thing that I always liked about Yes, is that harmonization. It's not quite to the same degree as we've seen in the past, but at least it's present, and at least it's making itself known. But, oh god, this song is so repetitive again. We've got that repeat stuff over and over and over again to nail it really down in your head. This song would be such a good song if they decided to do a little bit more with it, and it wasn't so repetitive. I'm just going to skip it. Let's move on to the next one. Okay, so this song opens up with a sitar, and it's got a kind of a nice rhythm to it. It's got a nice little groove. The song, again, is a very catchy piece, with John and Chris's harmonizations again, and the quick shift back and forth between that build-up of the chorus. We see some classic Yes in here. There's even a little bit of a musical interlude that we didn't see in the previous 2 songs, so, you know, maybe there's some gleaming hope in this album. But, again, this song doesn't stray too far from that home plate. And the lyrics, it could happen? What are they talking about? I mean, I know Yes has always been a big fan of the vague lyrics, you know, to bring your own interpretation into this. But when it's so bland, it's so transparent that you can put your own expectations and project your own feelings into this song, it's very hollow in times because of that. It can happen to you. Well, what is it? What can happen to me? Is it anything can happen to me? Well, that's true. Anything could happen to me. But, like, where's the meat? Where's the soul in this song? Okay, let's just next.
Change taking places. Put yourself to the ground. Capitalize on this good fortune. One word can bring you round. Change it.
Okay, 4th song, Changes. I like that intro. Very, very good. I'm kind of liking the groove. A strange groove type signature with instruments kind of blending into that. Now, this is what I came to see. This is more of what I'm expecting with Yes. But, unfortunately, that really great intro of the song trips over itself once we get into the main chorus and verse of the song. It lands really into the meh territory. I can see how the band was trying to blend that mellow and subdued atmosphere with the synthesizers and the guitars, blended actually very well with the abrasiveness and in-your-face style of the drums and the vocals. It's the drums and the vocals that are really leading the song, with the guitars and the synthesizers more in the back. So in that sense, I do kind of like this new approach. Unfortunately, this song has already been done, and it was done a decade before with David Bowie with the exact same title. So, okay, so we're halfway through, and so far I'm still saying the songs aren't great, but they're not terrible. Let's hope that the second side can boost things up a little bit. Alright, back at it again with the great soundscapes that we have in cinema. This sounds very much like that symphonic approach and that symphonic sounds that we found from drama. This is what we're coming to see. The track is definitely given a thumbs up for me in presenting music that is very, very well done, very well structured, very well thought out, and each musician is playing very well together. There's no isolation in this song. Everybody's inclusive, and that was always what I loved about Yes. It was so inclusive, and with the first side, it felt like everybody was kind of being pushed aside by whoever was leading the song. And so here we have a cohesive whole, and unfortunately, it's on the shortest song by far, at only reaching about the 2.5 minute mark. So let's see what else we have. riding off the coattails, we have Leave It. And it's got a really nice a cappella approach to the song. I like that approach. This is something that hasn't quite been done by Yes before, and I like it. I like how it's got that groovy kind of a cappella style to it, right? It's got that so it's got a little bit of a groove to it. I kind of like this. I really like that. But unfortunately, the lyrics do get in the way of this song. They're very, very shallow, and there's not really too much to go on, right? It's just kind of like leave it. So, I mean, overall, it's a good song, but it's also very shallow. So let's just go right on to the next one. What is this? It's almost like a parody of a song. It's not even supposed to be taken all that seriously, but the subject matter is supposed to be taken seriously. Like, it's got that high tempo synth that is usually reserved for quirky songs, especially with that, you know, really quick one note synth. Like, what is this? This is a little bit of a mess here. I'm not even sure if I'm supposed to take this song seriously. Was that the intent? Is this supposed to be a romantic song where it's like an expression of love through song? Or is it more of like an expression of song through love? I also find it very ironic that once they get into that lyric of the harmonization is glowing, there's no harmonizing going on there within the vocals. It's just the solo of John Anderson. So I don't mind when the subject matter and the music doesn't quite mesh. Like, sometimes it can really work, especially when you're dealing with a very dark and gritty subject paired very well with a happy, boppy, happy-go-lucky kind of a soundscape. It lightens the mood a little bit and allows you to make fun of it. Likewise, if you have like a very happy and very, again, happy-go-lucky subject matter, but putting it in more of a serious tone of music, it elevates that. So the two can work, those two different styles of approaches, but here, it just falls flat. It doesn't know what it wants to do. Let's just move on. City of Love. Oh, great. I'm seeing a really horrible theme going on here of hoppy love songs. But let's just see what City of Love is. I mean, we haven't heard it quite yet, so let's just dive in and see what it sounds like. Oh, God.
Once bitten, twice shy. No regrets at all. Justice, body smooth, take over.
Oh. That's actually not so bad. That's pretty good. Okay. See, I was not actually expecting that. That is more of what I'm talking about here. You know, the blending of that concept of the song and the musical style blending very well. We've got a very ugly bass line, and I really kind of like that. It's very different from the rest of the album, and it adds a much needed heaviness that we've been lacking from this point. And I guess Love of City is less about the emotional outpour of love or that romantic side of love, but more of like the physical love, the more gritty type of love. So let's see where this song goes. It goes nowhere. Okay, so there's a little bit of a change up within the chorus, and I do like that harmonization of "we'll be waiting for the night," but that alone doesn't carry the song through. The guitar solo dies right when we get into it, almost like when Trevor starts the guitar solo, the entire band just looks at him and goes, "Dude, what are you doing? Let's just keep this song going." Overall, it's not one of the worst songs on the album, and it actually has a bit more of a catchy groove in a positive light. If only the band did a little bit more with this song. Alright, one more song. We're almost there. Home stretch. Let's see what this song is about. It's a little bit longer, so hopefully the band can make up for it in the end. But it had to be called Hearts. Oh boy. Okay, what's this one about? This sounds a lot like Fly From Here. As a little bit of a background, the band recorded, or at least wrote, a lot of songs during that drama phase, and Fly From Here, their 2011 release, was one of those songs. And it has that same kind of a flavor, it has that same kind of a sound in the intro. And it sounds like we're back at it again with that Yes style of music. I'm listening to it and I can immediately identify this is Yes. And this is especially evident when we get past that introduction. I actually like the chorus on this track with that harmonizations of vocals and the great playing amongst the band. Again, we feel more inclusive as opposed to all those past tracks that are a little bit more, guys, give me space, I want to do my own thing here. And that guitar solo, again, it just doesn't quite work in that middle portion of the song. It's just kind of boring, really. But luckily, we get right back into that great build-up, and we're back into that beautiful chorus that I actually really enjoy here. And I do like that line of 2 hearts are better than one. At least that's got some feeling behind it. And John's vocals bringing that out, it feels more genuine, it feels more likable. And we get more musical change-ups in this song. It doesn't stay in place. It wanders the landscape a little bit. It tries new things. And when that choppy playing that I didn't like from the beginning comes back into the song, it starts to make sense. And once we get into that outro, we get into that final chorus, it all works together. And this song is actually a very pleasant song to end the album with. But it's definitely no Awakens, and by no stretch of the imagination a great song. It is just a pleasant song to end an album with. And finally, we're done with 90125. Overall, it's not that bad. The only problem is, it is quite boring. So why do people hate it so much? Well, many say that it's due to the shift in musical style, or that it's the absence of Rick Wakeman and Steve Howe, and some even say that it's Trevor Horn taking the center stage on the album. But I'm not convinced that these are the main reasons of why this album gets so much flack that it does. Honestly, I think the reason why this band gets so much flack, how much success the album has gotten. I mean, if you look at the ratings of past albums, Tornado has the exact same rating on Prog Archives. Yet people seem to forget Tornado, but very clearly remember 90125. And I think this is why. When you create a forgettable album like Tornado, the worst that happens is it just gets forgotten in the shuffle. People just don't talk about it. But when you create something that makes such a big splash in the musical scene and gets such a big recognition in the public eye, people are going to talk about it for quite a while. They're going to be saying, oh yeah, you guys listen to 90215, but really you should be listening to Close to the Edge or Relayered. Most of the songs on 90125 are catchy, they're predictable, they're repeatable, and thus they're very poppy and accessible. And I think that's the reason why a lot of prog snobs quote this album as being the worst. Tornado isn't really as catchy, but the follow-up from this album of Big Generator has a far lower score on the Prog Archives website. The actual album that gets the star for being the worst album is Open Your Eyes from 97. My biggest concern of this album is the lack of energy and creativity. It almost sounds like John Anderson, Chris Squire, and Alan White aren't really doing too much on this album. I love those small snippets where John and Chris are harmonizing, but they're few and far between, and they're not as passionate as I've heard in the past. We're also missing that really fun synthesizer sounds and those really fun playing between the guitars and the synthesizers. Those musicianships are gone. And that's probably just because of the lead keyboardist of Tony Kaye and Trevor Robin. I mean, these guys, they're fine for playing, but with playing within one another, they really lose themselves. So overall, 90125 is definitely not their best effort. I have to say, pass on it. There are a lot of other great popular music that the band has released that has a little bit more creativity within it. And that's really about it. What do you guys think of 90125? Do you love it? Do you hate it? There is a little bit of a fan base for this album, so let me know what you think about this album down below. And thank you guys so much for watching. It's always a blast to talk about these albums with you guys. I always have fun kind of ripping apart these terrible albums, so let me know what you think the next album for the Fallen from Grace series should be down below. So, thank you guys again so much for watching. That's all I've got for 90125. Alright, notes out.